All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Sparking Gun Reviews, and if you're watching this, I recorded this pretty much close after I recorded episode 6. I kind of couldn't wait to watch episode 7, and I normally don't record these until a few days after it actually drops on AMC Plus, which is actually not that expensive, so I would recommend getting it if you really want to have a little early access to some of your favorite shows. But because I really wanted to know what happened after watching the trailer for episode 7. And I got to tell you, you're probably going to be a little bummed out when you watch this episode or after you watch this episode because they don't tell you what happens, even though it leads all the way up to it. And I kind of got annoyed with that because now we have to go all the way to the very end to find out what happened in episode 8, the last episode. And we haven't had any kind of big momentous twist yet. We haven't seen anything that has to do with maybe something wrong with Allison's mind and how we do how she's thinking and what the actual maybe reality is. Because I think a lot of people are thinking that there's supposed to be, and I was included in that. That maybe there's like a split personality thing going on. What does is the sitcom way that she looks at things, is that some sort of mental break? But so far, that hasn't gone that way. And so anyway, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, all that stuff. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. How's everybody doing? Because we're talking about Kevin Can Fuck Himself, episode 7. It's called Broken, even though I thought it was probably going to be called Jenny McCarthy Tank Top, which would have been a pretty funny episode, but I didn't relish typing that long title for this episode because honestly, I was kind of disappointed because we didn't get that like resolution to what was shown in the trailer. But that's AMC for you. AMC, their like trailers for next week are always really out of context and vague. And next week, the finale, they did a really good job of not showing Kevin in any episode, any bit of that trailer from the finale. Leading you like, oh, what's up? It makes you really, really want it. But the thing is, last week's trailer for this episode was like that too, and then they didn't pay anything off. That is a major bummer. But there is some good character stuff in this week's episode. Because the plan is set. Even though through this entire episode, she is just a shaky, jittery mess. She is wondering what's wrong with her. And it's real simple. You're not a bad person. You're in a bad marriage and you're making terrible mistakes. And the physical reactions you're having are because you know what you're doing is not the way to do it. Now, I'm sure some of you out there will have your own opinion on that, and go ahead and put it in the comment section. This is my opinion on it. Is when you feel bad, when you have an actual physical response to something you did, it's because you know what you're doing is fucked. Setting up a hit on your husband with this guy, Nick, who is a completely unreliable mess himself. He immediately gets himself fired from his job, which is pretty convenient for the plot, where he just goes off at the restaurant he's at knowing he needs it for to keep his parole. Now, maybe did he act out this way because he knows he's getting, soon he's going to make $7,000, he's going to be able to bounce? But the thing was, it sounded like he wanted to get through his parole and then take off. But even he was like, there's nowhere, you can't get far enough away from all of this. And in her reaction to everything at the beginning, like, what are your plans? Lady, he's about to kill your husband. Plans? Acting like, what are you going to do after? Are you kidding me? Wake up, girl. But we know he's planning on upping it because he has to get out of Dodge immediately. Because apparently when your parole gets revoked and like, don't they wouldn't they give you like a little time to find a new job before they just immediately throw you back in jail? Or maybe, or does it depend on what you did? I don't know. Or could you call your parole officer and say, hey, I just got fired. I'm really sorry. I'm going to need like a minute to get myself back in order. I think that, I don't know. I think that, if you approach things like that, you might get a little more leniency. At least it would show that you are getting ahead of something instead of trying to hide it. Also, when we see Allison getting interrogated for whatever happened that we don't know, we still don't know. My money's on Kevin shot Nick, but because that would be just too convenient and easy. But it's Ridgway and her partner interrogating Allison, and all I could think was, there's no other detectives in this town. It's not that small, like just two homicide detectives in this whole place. I looked it up. There's got to be more. I know it's like it's doing it like this for the sake of the show, so that the character of Ridgway is close to everything, is close to Patty and all that other stuff. But just realistically, and yeah, the odds that she would be on the case anyway are fine. It just seems really convenient, and I hate that kind of convenient story trope where it's just, oh well, we need to have more drama, so we'll put the character that people know in here on it. It just annoys me. And it's funny how, like, neither her or Patty are hardcore criminals, but Patty's way more prepared. We get to see the practice interrogation, which really shows how Allison is not ready for any of this. But she's also never ready for anybody to criticize her plan. Her plan is shit, and she knows it. I think she knows it deep down. But I think that she's just so... She wants to get to the end. She wants to skip to the end. And Patty's like, we haven't even hit the hard part yet. Covering all these things. And Allison being like, I'll be fine. When somebody says that, they won't. And especially on TV. They always do this where they're like, I'm good. I'm good to go. And then they're in the situation and they completely fall apart. Because again, she's not a criminal mastermind. She is just a woman with her back up against the wall in a loveless marriage. And she's probably not really, even really been into this marriage for years now. And instead of just leaving. And again, I know I've covered this. I know it's not that easy all the time. She even admits in this episode, I'm a monster. I am hurting people. If she's capable, but it's just like, if she's capable of doing so much, like Sam's telling her, in the last episode, you're in charge. You can do things. She can get jobs. She can find places to live. So what is the fucking deal? Because Patty's like, everything that you're doing, I know you're sleeping with Sam. And if I know it, everybody else is going to be able to figure it out too, especially the cops. And everything you're doing is going to be judged. And again, it's just, she just does not see it. She even knows about the scone and the book thing and all that stuff. And what an affair will say to the cops about her life. And that closing your eyes to reality just makes you blind. But Allison's convinced that as long as she sets up this alibi, everything will be fine. But the thing is
like I said last week, in the last episode review, she's already planting problems all over us. First being Nick seeing Sam. Nick and Sam meeting. So, but she starts to break down in this episode, right? Whether she's outside of talking to Patty, going to the gynecologist, like setting up her alibi, right? So she's setting up her alibi. She's supposed to be going to her mother's, But first she goes to the gynecologist because she thinks that if she looks like she's going to the fertility doctor to have kids with Kevin, then I couldn't possibly want to murder my husband. The whole thing where she's grabbing the pamphlet and wanting somebody to notice how you're like it's like somebody who watches a bunch of SVU or mystery shows trying to plot the perfect crime from watching TV. It's just hilarious. And when she's on the table talking to the doctor and she is so jittery and she is so shaky and she's talking about her past with Kevin, how everything started with them. And it's just like when you hear the tone of her voice and you look at her body language, she is a woman on the edge and just, the gynecologist almost should be like, ma'am, do you need to talk to a counselor or some kind of psychiatrist because you see this in people. She's trapped. She is literally trapped and she just can't find it to reach out to get the help that she needs. She appears on to me on the outside to be somebody who'd be like battered wife syndrome. And so I don't know. Also, Ridgway knows about she's looking into fake scripts for a 98-year-old, and which leads that Nick, the thing with Nick, is closing in on him, and Patty sees this. Then we also have kind of a subplot with Patty and Ridgway, her hiding, telling Ridgway, I'm not ready to just come out to everybody, because in this area, you know, be going from straight to gay or just being gay in general is... Look, if you've watched enough stuff about characters from this kind of area, this kind of mindset of the characters, you can tell that she's afraid to how they're going to react to her being gay, even though it's none of their fucking business. Also, she's 33. Good Lord. She doesn't look 33. She doesn't. Where now we get to the little mini sitcom side plot, which is Jenny McCarthy tank top. Kevin wants to start a band because he got drunk and thinks he sang some karaoke good. So of course, but when Neil finds the pamphlets in their garbage about the kids stuff, suddenly Kevin has a change of heart, but not before basically saying that the reason this is important is that to prove to Allison that his sperm is fine and it's not his fault they can't have kids. Even though Kevin repeatedly talks about, I don't want kids, I would be losing focus on myself, that the world would suddenly stop revolving around me. At least he knows that. I've said he isn't self-aware, but he is self-aware about that. He knows that he just likes to be the center of attention. So I guess he is a little more self-aware than I thought. But this goes from being him not caring about having kids to suddenly, once he finds out that he can have kids and that he's, viable, it's time to have kids. He wants to spread all the Kevins around that he can, which leads Allison to start crying, even though they misinterpret the crying as in she's happy and not terrified of having children with this man. And, when Allison's crying in the bathtub and Patty comes up there, she's like, do you even want kids? And if you use the term, well, it's what you do. That's not the answer. That's not yes and that's not no. It's what you do kind of sums up like the society that that we live in. The expectations that people just go through. I have to get married. I have to have kids. I have to start just checking off the normal person's checklist rather than just living your life. Do what you want to do. Nobody says you have to carry on and bring more children into this world. You don't. There are so many people out there that should not have kids, that just do it because it's expected. And I mean, if we can't break those simple mindsets, How the hell are we ever going to change anything in this country if we can't break off these traditional mindsets? You want to have kids, have fucking a million if you have to. But make sure you're there for them. If you don't want kids, don't. You're not doing anyone any favors. Not you, not the kids, not society as a whole. Stay broken is what Patty says, and I couldn't agree more, really. Because at least at this point, you know, Allison has gone from I'm putting up with all this to not putting up with anything. She's going about it wrong, but if she's just, you know, took a breath and said, I just need to leave, which again is to me the biggest problem in this. And but at least this conversation leads Patty to tell Ridgway that she is the right person. And we find out a little bit more about Sam's family, that the money that he had to start the restaurant, the diner, came from his in-laws. We see that his marriage is not very good either. He's very worried about the money that he's borrowed from her family and that they pay for everything, and he didn't really have anything, and he's resenting it. She's trying to be a good wife, but she also says that he is a big fixer-upper, and then he leaves. She slams the door, so he's the person like that should be happy. But if you're not with the right person, and that's, I think, a big part of this episode, right? When you're talking about Ridgway and Patty, Sam and his wife, Kevin and Allison, everybody's trying to figure out what's right. And now Kevin wants to have sex to help start having a family. When they hear someone breaking into their house. But we find out that Kevin has a gun. The gun that was found with the metal detector. The gun from before. And now the gun, again, another thing blowing up in Allison's face. Because now Kevin has a gun, and he goes to find out what's going on. We know that this has to be Nick coming in. There's a gunshot, end of episode. We find out nothing. Even though they show us the interrogation scenes that are vague. And if she can just leave, then it tells me that Kevin's probably fine. Or maybe he died of a heart attack after firing the gun. I don't know. All I know is that we'll find out in the finale, and it was a little bit of a bummer not finding out this week what happened. I'm just saying. So, anyway, here's to the penultimate episode of Kevin Can F Himself. Hopefully next week we get some sort of payoff to all this, because from where I started to where we are now, it has been a slow downward slant of interest in this episode, not just for my videos, but for me in general. So I hope that they find a way to flip this all around and tell us, finish up this story. Now, is there going to be a second season? I don't know. I really hope not. And I mean that in the best possible way. Because I don't want this dragged out for another 8 more episodes. I just don't. So anyway, if you like this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, and the bell for all notifications. If you hated everything I said, and you liked some of that time back, well, if you look right here, we can give you a better memory, give you about the last 20 minutes of your life back. So if you did like it, look away, put on sunglasses. If you didn't, look right here, and we'll give you a better memory. Here's the memory I choose to give you. Have a good night.
Dealing in, you son of a bitch. You're gonna fry.